how to go to the emergency room in a foreign country, how to go to an emergency room internationally. So I'm in Mexico. I've been here for 4 months now, and I barely speak English. And I've been having a health issue where I get really dizzy in the afternoons, and it turns out my blood pressure is like really dropping low and then fluctuating. And it's been happening for a few weeks. It's a medication complication. And I thought that it would go away because I weaned off the medicine, and it's actually kind of gotten a little worse. And so yesterday I got the dizziness and my blood pressure was dropping, and I also had like tingling in my left arm, and I was like, okay, it's probably nothing, but I need to go to a hospital. And so thankfully, I'm cat sitting for some people, and they left like really good notes about the neighborhood, and they had even suggested if you need to go to the hospital, go to this hospital. And I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to say it here. I didn't think I needed an ambulance. I did call a Didi, which is something that you can use here instead of an Uber, D-I-D-I. They're in Playa del Carmen, and they're also here in Merida, Mexico, and I recommend them over Uber because I hate Uber. So I called the Didi, and then I started messaging people that I had met here in Merida, and I also messaged a family member, and I messaged a friend of the people who I'm cat sitting for. They're in Europe. I didn't want to freak them out. But I did want them to know, in case, I don't know, I ended up in the hospital, like for real, I wanted them to know. So on the way to the emergency room, I'm like trying to think of like all the things that I need to do because I'm not prepared for this. And this is why I'm making this video, because thankfully I did have some things in place that made this not a total disaster. And I'm fine, by the way. They ran a bunch of tests and I'm fine. I'm still having the dizziness and a little bit of numbness in my fingers, but blood work and an electrocardiogram revealed that there's nothing going on as far as they can see. Okay, so on the way to the emergency room, I'm thinking, okay, I need to contact my aunt. So I contacted my aunt, and I'm like, hey, this is going on. This is where I'm going. I contacted some people that I had already met here in Merida. And if you are a solo traveler, you need to make friends. I don't know what's been up with my health for the last few months. I have never been sick this much in my life. And I mean, honestly, it wasn't really so much about me being sick. There was a bunch of like extenuating circumstances that I won't go into here. It's not Mexico's fault. I just had like a run of bad luck. But one of the reasons why it wasn't so terrible was because I had made friends with people, and they were willing to like go to the drugstore for me and like bring me Gatorade and crackers and stuff for my stomach and everything. Okay, and most of that was not, one time was the water, most of it was from medication, like trying different medications to help manage my anxiety, depression, and I was trying to finally like do something about my ADHD. Didn't work out so well. Okay, but on the way there, so I contacted my aunt. I told her what hospital I was going to. I reached out to some people that I have met here in Merida, and I said, hey, listen, here's my full name. Here's my birth date. Here's my aunt's number. Here's the hospital I'm going to. If you don't hear from me in a couple hours, please come looking for me. And the cool thing is, like, if you are a solo traveler or you're traveling internationally, go find expat groups. Go find groups of internationals, because I think it's easier to make friends when you're hanging out with other people from, a variety of different places. Like, you're meeting people maybe even from your home country, but you're somewhere you wouldn't normally be, right? You wouldn't, like, you're in a different place, right? And so it kind of bonds you in a different way. You're like, okay, you're familiar, and yes, I want to be here and experience this culture and this different place, but it also is very comforting to be around people that you'll understand your culture and understand your references and everything. So definitely go do that, because it's going to help your trip be a lot better. You can get a lot of good recommendations. You have people to hang out with, and if you get sick, or God forbid you need to go to the hospital, you have a little bit of a safety net. Okay, so one woman reached out to me, and she said, listen, I used to live in Australia. I know what it's like to go to the emergency room by myself, in a foreign country. So do you want me to come with you? And I was like, yeah. And so this woman, I had only met her once, and she is Mexicana. I'm still learning Spanish, but but she had lived in Australia for a number of years, and she's recently back in Mexico. We had only met once, but because she had that experience of being a solo female traveler, she was willing to come sit with me on a Friday, right, on a Friday night. So I knew she was coming, and I went into my translation app, and I started, the doctors here in Mexico speak pretty good English. Like most of them are like pretty fluent, right? But the support staff may not be as fluent, right? And I'm thinking like, I don't feel great, but I don't feel terrible. So I'm probably not going to need notes, but I was just thinking like, what if I pass out before I get there, So I was making a note in Google Translate about what medications that I'm taking, the medication that I just stopped taking, and I didn't just stop taking it. I weaned off with my doctor's help, but it's still causing chaos. And, I was just trying to think ahead, what do I do if this? And something that I hadn't thought of, in the moment on the way there, was I tend to have funny reactions to a lot of medications, and as I get older, my body is just not having it. My body just does not like medication. And so I have a list in my phone so that whenever I see a new doctor and they ask, okay, are you allergic to any drugs or whatever, I can say, hey, listen, don't give me methylprednisolone, don't give me Cipro, don't give me Demerol, and so I had that little list too. And it's a lot easier, especially in a country where, the nurse that was checking me out when I first got to the emergency room, he spoke English, but it was, his English was way better than my Spanish, but it was difficult, right? And so instead of trying to say the names of these drugs, which in Mexico, it's probably a different name, or maybe he only knows them by a generic or something, I was able to just give him that note and he could just write it down there. So it made everything a lot easier. It facilitated everything. I do also have my iPhone set up so that first responders can access my blood type and, all that stuff. So excuse me. So my friend, her name is Claudia. She's amazing. She came in, and the doctor did speak English, but even if you're fluent in another language, you probably haven't studied intricate stuff about medicine, in another language. And when you're dealing with your health, and especially I don't know, I was showing signs of a possible heart attack. I really didn't think I was having a heart attack, but when your heart rate is going crazy and your blood pressure is going crazy and you have tingles in your fingers, you don't fuck around, right? That's something you want to have very clear communication about what's going on. So it would have been so much more difficult if I had been there just trying to do it with, their fluent English, my horrible Spanish, and, just trying to do that with translation, with Google Translate. So here's my suggestions. Have your phone set up if you have an Apple, if you have an iPhone, and I'm sure Android has this feature as well. Put in your information, your blood type, what medications you're on. Make sure you keep that updated on the dosage and when you take them, how many times a day you take them, what milligram you take, and keep it updated, what medications, if there's anything that you're allergic to, whether it's food or medication or latex, right? Something like that. I'm a cancer survivor. I had a mastectomy, and I lost some lymph nodes. So this arm, my left arm, is it's a lymphedema risk. So it can if I get a blood pressure cuff or a needle stick, it can cause an adverse reaction and my arm can swell up, and then it takes a really long time for that swelling to go down and it can get infected and it's all bad, right? So one of the things I have in my notes is no needle sticks, no cuffs. Now you can wear medic alert bracelets, and if you've got really complicated, if you have a complex health issue, then I would highly encourage you to have something like that too. But I don't have complex health issues, so I just had the stuff in my phone, and I did have the note in Evernote so that I could just easily, whatever note taking app is, fine, whatever works for you. But having those things made a scary situation a little bit better. And I didn't end up having to use the stuff. I put it in Google Translate, but I mean, I was like, hey, I was taking this medication this many times a day, this other medication this many times a day. I stopped taking this medication 3 weeks ago. Like, I was prepared if I needed it. I didn't end up needing that, but if my friend hadn't come, I might have needed that. So I just wanted to share this because it's something that I've never heard anybody make any content on. And it's something important, you need to know. I mean, those are kind of important things that you should have in your home country just to make life easier and keep you a little more safe. Because God forbid, if you're knocked out, if you're unconscious, if you passed out, like they don't know all this stuff, right? So having that information in a place that they know to look, so like in a phone, for instance, but just having it to make it your life easier when you go to new doctors, or if you're in an emergency situation and you're fully conscious, but it's very easy to forget important details when you're stressed. So that is my little short video on how to go to the urgencia in Mexico, but really, I mean, anywhere. So I hope this is helpful. If you have a story about going to a hospital or doctor in another country and you have some tips to share, I would love to see those in the comments. And Heather Wild out.